Right, good afternoon, everyone. After lunch, how's everyone doing? All right, I like it, some energy. If you can do me a favor, if you have a phone with Wi-Fi, text a friend that's out there eating lunch and tell them to get in here, because we're going to have a good conversation. We need a full house to hear these messages. So my name's Justin Van Fleet. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Business Coalition for Education, and we are here to talk about building and unleashing the full potential of the next generation. Now, young people have had it particularly difficult time over the past few years. A global pandemic, social tensions, increasing inequality, the climate crisis, cost of living, hunger, famine, war, conflicts. This is what all of young people are facing. And if we are going to be able to address these issues, we need to make sure that every young person has the skills that they need to go out, enter society, enter the workforce, and be prepared to solve these challenges together. It means that education and education systems need to work harder than ever to help us achieve this change. So we're across the street from the Transforming Education Summit, but I think some of the best solutions and ideas are going to be on this end of UN Plaza today. And we have an expert panel, and I'm really thrilled that they're here with us to share their perspectives. We first have Anoshiravani. She is from Deloitte, so she's the Purpose Office Leader for Education and Workforce Development. She leads that entire office at Deloitte, and she's been working with the Global Business Coalition on youth skills. Deloitte's a partner of the Skills Friendly Cities Initiative, and they've launched a Big Ideas, Bright Cities Challenge, challenging cities, young people to think about what they can do differently to change the outlook for the next generation of youth and to build those partnerships with the private sector. We also have Blessing. Blessing Adogame is here with us. She's a global youth ambassador at Their World, but she's also the UX product manager at Microsoft. So she's in the tech industry, and she has a long history of using tech for campaigning. When she was in university, she built this LinkedIn campaign to get young people involved in learning skills around interviewing, helping to get those different types of opportunities so that they can go in and try to apply for and enter the workforce with those skills through using social networks. So she's here with us. And we also have my friend Gideon, who he told me I've known him for 6 years, and I still can't pronounce his last name right. But I'm going to try again. So Gideon Olanrewaju, pretty close, pretty close, pretty close. He is a former Global Youth Ambassador at Their World, and he is a young entrepreneur in Nigeria. Gideon was one of our Innovation Award winners. He set up a really interesting program, and hopefully we'll hear a bit about that today. So enough about these intros and about me. I want to hear from the real folks with the real solutions here. So Blessing, why don't we start with you? You're a young leader in the tech industry, a youth advocate. Getting into this field's not easy. Can you talk through what was it like? What are some of the challenges? How did you get to where you are today?
Of course. Hello, everyone. So as a global citizen who has lived in Nigeria, in Germany, in Scotland, and the United States before the age of 18, I've found the world to become my stomping ground and each country that I lived in to become a classroom. As an international student coming to the United States with very little connections, I found it pretty difficult to find a community of students like me. And so I decided, as Justin mentioned, to start a global campaign on LinkedIn called Students of LinkedIn to help empower and to educate and to encourage students to fully unlock their potential on LinkedIn. As I had a lack of funding as well, I had to find creative ways to put my name, to put myself out there so that I could find and be attracted to different scholarship opportunities. I even went a step further to leverage the community that I had just built on LinkedIn to start to raise money for a scholarship foundation for international students like me, because I didn't quite like the idea that international students or students in general were spending so much of their time not actually learning, but working menial jobs just so they can pay their tuition. I also remember seeing no one that looked like me, both in the classrooms and the offices I interned in, and I started to question whether technology really was for me. So I started to volunteer at STEM workshops for young girls so that I could be that representation that I didn't see. And all of these things, the lack of community, the lack of funding and representation and resources, these are all challenges that young people can face when they want to enter into the workforce. And, don't get me wrong, it was through these opportunities that I actually got to believe that maybe my dreams and my hopes could be more than just dreams and hopes. And as much as I enjoyed being involved in these opportunities, I felt that it shouldn't have been my responsibility. I think about things like, how can we be expected to break the glass ceiling when the pillars of our education system are falling apart? The world is facing a profound skills crisis, and I feel like if companies don't rise up to these challenges, it's us as the young people that will fall first. I think that education can and will bridge the gap between the classroom and the career, but it's only if we let it. So when leaders are unwilling to step forward, they leave it to the young people like me to show the way forward. So I sit here as a Black employee who struggled to believe that my employment was for more than just a diversity quota. I sit here as an international student who struggled to find scholarships and funding because of my visa status. And I sit here as the young girl who thought that technology wasn't for people like me. But most importantly, I sit here as someone who has broken out of the bounds that external realities has placed me in to show that it is possible, and I will continue to lift as I climb. Thank you.
I told you, if they're having lunch, they're missing out. It's going to be a good panel. Blessing, having that experience, that lived experience, what would you say to someone out there that's like you 5 years ago? What advice do you have for them?
There's a lot, but I think I would boil it down to the fact that, as young people, we have pieces of our story that we think are broken or we think are insignificant. But if we can look at those stories as powerful things to bring to the world, if we can do that, if we can believe in them, if we can believe in ourselves and use that to create a powerful narrative for ourselves, then I think that that's what we need to do, because it's only us. We have the power to do it, and the world just has the privilege to listen. Yep.
And I find all of this so shocking because some of the statistics right now are saying 3 out of every 4 employers are having a difficulty filling spots. They're searching for talent. But at the same time, these statistics that you're citing, this crisis, if we keep doing what we're doing, 1 out of every 2 young people won't have the most basic skills for a job by 2030, and that's not too far away. So, Ara, I'm going to turn to you as our private sector representative and say, what do we do about this? Deloitte, you're a leader in purpose, leader in workforce development. What's your take on the skills gap, and what's your organization doing to help provide opportunities for youth?
First off, Justin, thank you for having us, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by personally saying what a blessing it is to meet you, Blessing. And as a mother of a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, I can't wait to share your story and inspire my children through you, so thank you. And I can't believe I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, by the way. It goes by really fast. But at Deloitte, we absolutely know that our greatest asset are our people, and we value diversity and talent and skills, a skilled workforce. But we also care deeply about the systems and the institutions that educate and prepare our workers and the future. We are committed to the social injustices and that imperative to help address the systematic barriers. This has become such a prevailing focus for us over the last little bit here, and that we want to make sure that groups that have been historically marginalized by society are no longer, or do going forward, have access to the educational institutions and the workforce and the labor force that we need. We continue to invest a great deal in skills first, and this is new for us, really speaking bluntly. In the past, 98% of our jobs were degree-based. And so this has been a really new emphasis for us and an area that we're very committed to. But we're very focused on skills-based initiatives, and we're a proud founding member of the 110 Coalition, which is now 70 plus companies strong, committed to hiring 1 million Black Americans without degrees over the next 10 years, or over the first 10 years. We're 2 years in, call it. That is important, and that is really showing that there is appetite and there is an understanding that wasn't there before. I will also say, I apologize, I have notes with me because I came in on a red eye, and I don't trust my memory, and I do have some stats I want to make sure I get right. But, you know, and we're really committed to creating a better workforce and a better, more equitable, diverse workforce. So on 110's website, here are the stats. Some of the information that they share as to why it's so important to close this gap is requiring a bachelor's degree automatically includes 76% of Black Americans, 76%. And traditional hiring practices are not driving racial equity at scale. Hiring based on skills is 5 times more predictive of future performance than hiring for education, and 2.5 times more predictive than hiring for work experience. Skills are critical. Hiring for skills decreases time to hire and clearly increases diversity in the candidate pools. And this is the one that really gets me. And we think about what 110's mission is today. An estimated 4 million jobs today can be re-credentialed to remove that requirement for a degree. 4 million jobs. And that's 4 million people that have the skills that currently don't have access to the job. So our vision is to create an organization-wide skills strategy for talent, grounded in our business's strategy to enable skills across the talent pool, life cycle, and marketplace, and really to empower, to your point, Blessing, our leaders to be able to make decisions that fuel the growth of their businesses, because without the workforce, we can't do that. So going back, so really, Justin, to answer your question, we've launched our first large-scale skills-based hiring efforts in Dallas. Within a month, we saw an incredible increase in the number of applicants, as well as the number of intentional hires, of which some are 110 qualified candidates. Since that launch, we've really focused on making sure that we're connecting with the right talent developers to make sure that we have access to the right non-degree talent. We're working with our recruiters to make sure that they're educated on how to help, how to work through, and how to source candidates. And so there's some really exciting things there. And that is going to continue to grow and expand across the country and throughout all of our businesses at Deloitte. Lastly, as you mentioned, Justin, we were incredibly proud to be a co-sponsor along with Dell Technologies of the GBC Education Big Ideas, Bright Cities to really drive innovation and creativity in the youth, and looking forward to continuing to do so.
Oh, that's great. And I think, everybody applaud. I mean, I think there are two things that really stand out. A company realizing that people are the number one resource, the number one most important thing to a company's success. And then this idea that education doesn't necessarily mean skills. And so the question is, how do we make sure education is providing those right skills and preparing young people? And so Gideon, I want to turn to you, I think, on this based on the work that you're doing. You're a young entrepreneur in Nigeria, running some really interesting programs focused on better opportunities for young people and trying to bridge that gap. Can you share a bit about what you're doing and what you're seeing?
Okay, thank you very much, Justin. So my name is Gideon. I'm from Nigeria. I run an organization called Aid for Rural Education Access Initiative. From the name of the organization, our mission stands very clear, which is to provide access to support educational development in rural communities. We provide innovative and accelerated learning programs focused on development of foundational learning, digital skills, and employability skills. And that is predominantly because 3 things stands out with the problem we have around educational access and development in Nigeria. The first one is the foundational learning crisis that affects almost all global South countries, as we know today, which is the fact that 5 or maybe 6 out of 10 children cannot read, write, or do basic arithmetic at the age of 10. The other one we have is the skills employability mismatch. There's a huge disconnection between academia as well as the jobs that we have now and then the future of work as well. So as someone who studied biochemistry, interestingly, I saw the challenges and I felt there is this passion to go into that industry, the educational development industry, and do something. So we've developed quite a number of interventions, but there are 2 that I believe they are our biggest exports to the world. The first one is called Fast Track, which is the one, Deloitte recently funded, with £50,000 and now investing additional money into it because I believe it is groundbreaking. So what is Fast Track? Fast Track is an indigenous accelerated foundational skills development intervention that combines 3 evidence-based approach in supporting children to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. So we learned about the teaching at the right level methodology, which was developed by Pratham Foundation in India. We combined that with something called the bilingual model of instruction, which says that children are able to learn a new language when they are taught in a language they are born with or they are familiar with. And then the last one is an invention we designed in Nigeria. It's called the Mavis Talking Books and Pen. So imagine an electronic pen that when you put on paper translates English into a local language. So we integrated all of this together. We piloted it in a rural community as well as 2 IDP camps, and we saw a 93% increase in competency levels for the beneficiaries. And thanks to your support, we just finished 2,500 children again in 6 IDP camps. IDP camps, if you don't know, are similar to refugee camps in Syria, and IDP camps are getting larger day by day because of the Boko Haram crisis. The second one that I'm excited about is called the Digital Skills Accelerator for Women and Girls. Historically, based on evidence, we see a lot of women and girls being exempted from the digital economy. But as an organization, we decided to design an intervention that focused extensively and exclusively on how we can support girls or women that are not in education, employment, or training called NEETs within the educational domain on developing digital skills. But not just digital skills. So we have 2 streams. The first one is called the Basic Digital Skills for Learning, and the other one is called the Advanced Digital Skills for Employability. From the name, our mission is clear. For the learning, there's so many digital skills that young girls need, particularly within the educational system, to be able to survive, thrive, and transition from one level of education to another. So we support them in developing social, mobile, operational, information navigation, and creative digital skills. For the other one, which is what we are really looking forward to scaling right now, is supporting pregnant teens, teenage mothers, those who are unemployed, to develop 5 major skills that, based on the survey we did in Nigeria, are most sought after. So we are supporting girls to develop skills in web development, in graphic design, in UI UX design, in coding, in programming, and we just finished a cohort of 50. So one thing in finalizing that we do at AREAi is, before we export any program to the world and seek for support, we pilot them internally to generate evidence of impact and sustainability. The world right now is conscious about what works, and we are very devoted to that process of generating evidence and developing homegrown indigenous solutions that can close foundational digital and employability gaps. Thank you.
That's great. Congratulations. Really great outcomes from these pilots.
Justin.
It's great work. And I think that leads me to this next thing. So what do? We see this crisis. Gideon started to tell us some of these projects that he's piloting, getting some really good results. Blessing, I'm going to start with you. What would you like to see the private sector do if we're actually going to solve the skills gap?
Yeah. So as someone who obviously recently graduated from university and had the privilege of starting their career at Microsoft, I definitely have seen a disconnect between what I've learned in the classroom and how the beginning of my career has looked like. I tried my best when I was in university to bridge that gap so that I wouldn't be culture shocked when I entered the workforce, but there was only so much that I can do. I think when it comes to private sectors and what they can do, I want to start by talking about just the jobs are available in the first place. I came to the United States in my senior year of high school from Scotland. I had taken 1 computer science class and I didn't really have the opportunity to dive deeper into that field. So when I came to the United States, senior year of high school, immediately the few months that I started high school, I had to do my SATs and I had to quickly choose what I wanted to do in university for the next 4 to 5 years. I chose computer science until maybe like a few months into the program, I realized that coding really isn't for me. And what I was taught was that the only way into the technology industry was through computer science. But technology is so broad, it's so diverse, it's so dynamic, and I think it's important for people to know what are the different areas you can go into. So I switched my field of study from computer science to software engineering, and then finally to information systems. And, you know, it took me a year to do that. And not many people have the opportunity to know exactly what are the different roles in technology or just other fields in general. So I think that the private sector can do a better job in explaining what are the different roles that there are available, and then also while you're in the classroom, while you're in university, what are the characteristics that you can build up, what are the skills that you can learn to help you be better for that role. I think when you go into to the workforce straight from college, and you've taken classes and you've gotten A's, and you think that you're really prepared for the workforce, but then you're quite shocked because your A's that you got in your classes don't translate to being a good employee. So I think it's important that we learn these characteristics, how to be a great problem solver, how to think critically, all of these things, so that we are able to not just be great in our role, but just be a great professional in general.
That's so interesting, and it's so important. If you're making these career choices, you're making it years in advance of actually having that interview and not knowing what are the actual available types of jobs, what are the skills somebody might need, what are the opportunities. So I think communication from the private sector about those opportunities is crucial. So that's such a great point. Ara, maybe for you, maybe if we flip it the other way around for young people, what do you think young people can be doing to better prepare themselves to enter the world of work in this changing workforce?
So first off, not fair that I follow Blessing.
It's the second time I've done that, isn't it?
Secondly, I think I'm going to put my mom hat on for a moment and answer this question the way I try to encourage and inspire my kids, which is always be curious, always be up for learning, always ask questions, and always think about what the next thing is, and keep up with the curve, continue to upskill. You don't know. I think about a firm the size of ours, and I've had the privilege of being here 22 years, and I've done many different things. Big firms allow for lots of different opportunities, so staying curious and being open-minded, continuing to upskill, and asking those questions provides for other opportunities. I'll mention one thing, in addition to skills first kind of focus and hiring, we're also developing apprenticeship programs. And I think really our focus is to allow for those opportunities for younger professionals to join, to come in, to get exposure, to identify what their passions may be or where they see that fit, giving them the right skilling to be able to enter that workforce, but also to limit some of that shock value maybe, right? Which we all felt when we first started. So I think there's a number of things that we are focused on and that I think each of our future professionals can continue to do. But I would just also say, so follow your passions and believe in kind of right will prevail and the right things will happen.
That's great. Thank you. All right, so we have some advice for businesses, some advice for young people. Gideon, I'm sure you have some opinions on this. What would you like to see governments do differently?
Thank you, Justin. I like that. I am very, very critical of public-private partnerships. But before I go into what I think government should do, I think I need to reinstate the fact that non-profit organizations, social enterpreneurs like ours, are not trying to compete with the government because that's always their mindset. We want to complement and hold them accountable for the work they're supposed to do. So I know that could come, so I jotted 4 major things that I think government should do. The first thing is to review the educational curricula to reflect changes in the skills that are needed in the current and future of jobs. And the 3 things I think could be focused on in terms of skills would be technical vocational educational skills, green skills, and digital skills. The second thing will be investment in massive digital upscaling programs and initiatives. We have some government who are devoting resources to ensure that, and I think that is really something that needs to be taken to another level. The third thing would be improving access to digital connectivity and broadband penetration. We continue to talk about digital skills development in the global south and developing countries. We fail to understand that there's a deep difference between mobile penetration and digital penetration. There are millions of Nigerians, for example, who do not even know how to use internet-enabled phone. And that is because of low broadband penetration. Government needs to pay attention to that. Now, I will fail myself if I do not talk about this last and fourth point. Government needs to support continuous professional development of teachers. No educational system, either formal or non-formal, can outshine the quality of its teachers. And as long as the welfare, motivation, and the skills of teachers are not taken into account in designing quality educational systems, we cannot marshal young people to go into good jobs. Thank you, Justin.
So I'm taking away a bit of a blueprint here of actions from different folks that really need to work in partnership if education is going to work harder for this next generation. We have the example of entrepreneurs on the ground starting new projects, piloting by getting data, results, and information to show what works. We have this idea that the business community needs to better communicate to young people to help them understand what the opportunities are and what those pathways are to get the right skills so they're ready at the right time to enter the workforce. We have this idea that young people should be encouraged to be curious, encouraged to ask questions, upskill, try new things as they're sort of seeking out these pathways in the workforce and navigating their careers. And then we have a whole list of things that governments could be doing better, but I think they're all extremely important, ranging from curriculum and infrastructure to the professional development of teachers. And I think the other point that I really like is this notion of trying new things. Government should see that as a new way of collaborating, not as a threat to the existing system. So I think we have a nice blueprint of some really concrete and tangible actions to go forward. Now, here's my question. We have a Transforming Education Summit. We're going to leave today, and hopefully everybody will be really inspired to make these changes, to go out in the world and make a difference. But what do we want to see different in a year's time to know we're on the right track? And Ara, I will let you go first and let blessing follow you this time. And this will be, I won't wrap up, I'll let the three of you sort of summarize with sort of where do we want to be in a year's time if we're actually making progress. So Ara.
This falls in the category of be careful what you ask for. I think from my perspective, thinking from the private sector, hold us accountable, right? In a year from now, we should be doing things substantially different. We should be seeing more jobs focused based on skills. We should be seeing us develop more through apprenticeships, and not just us, Deloitte, but we have 70+ coalition members on 110 and many others, that are making a commitment to do the same. So hold us accountable, and let's talk about what the positive impact has been and what the next step is in a year from now.
All right, great. Hold companies accountable. All right, employers accountable. Blessing, over to you.
I want to see a more updated curriculum in our classrooms, similar to what Gideon mentioned and what I mentioned earlier. I feel like there's a disconnect between what we learn in the classroom and the challenges and the problems that we're faced with and we're asked to solve when we get into the workforce. So I want to see curriculums be more responsive to the actual world that we live in now, so that we are better equipped when we go into the companies or whatever it is that we aspire to do. I think that it's important that we are equipped with the skills and with the tools needed, and right now I don't think that's happening to the best that it can be. So that's what I'd like to see a year from now.
Great, I like that, and it's concrete. We can do this. This isn't crazy. We're not being crazy. We can actually look at our curriculums and make them more fit for reality of the workforce. I think it's a great, tangible thing that we can see. Gideon, what would you like to see in a year's time?
I will be emotional about it by saying I want to see gender transformative educational systems. Seeing the situation in Afghanistan and across the world, girls are denied access to education. We need to integrate them back and give them the tools that they need to thrive. So over the next 1 year, I hope governments will respond to the world crying to ensure that more girls attend school and are learning. Thank you.
Right, great. All right, so we will see you all in 1 year's time, and we'll see how we did. Thank you all for all of your incredible insights and ideas and perspectives. I really appreciate it. I think everyone here did, and everyone viewing at home as well. So we are going to head off and tackle this youth skills crisis and get to work first thing in the morning.